Hello, welcome to step 3 of part 3 in a 3-part tutorial series on how to write a philosophy essay. Part 3 is dedicated to a detailed step-by-step guide to writing a philosophy essay and is more technical than parts 1 and 2. Each lesson covers one of the steps of the guide. While you can watch the lessons independently from one another, or in any way you wish to watch them, each except the last one assume that you have either watched the previous ones or have sufficient knowledge of the area they cover. In the previous lesson of this section, we covered the first 2 steps of writing a philosophy essay. That included reading the assigned text carefully in order to identify the arguments. It covered the importance of paraphrasing for separating arguments from the rest of the text. I showed you how an argument can be broken into its premises and a conclusion or thesis, and what the difference between a deductive and inductive argument is. The last thing we did was learn to evaluate the arguments you have identified by checking them for validity of their structure and soundness of their argument. If your essay is only exegetical, then it was not necessary to evaluate the arguments, but philosophy assignments usually ask you to do that. We have completed a very detailed preparatory work, and we are not ready to write yet. Not without a plan. A plan of an essay is not the outline of the essay. I will provide you with an outline for the essay in the next video, step 4. I like to think of the outline of your essay as the structure of your essay, and the plan of your essay as the substance of your essay. There are many ways of planning, and you either know what kind of planning works for you from past experiences, or you have to find out what kind works best by trial and error. I am going to offer you the most common one, what I will call the argument outline method. But again, please keep in mind that this is not an outline for your essay. It's the outline of the argument. When completed, this argument outline will become the midsection, that is the body of your paper. And a very short summary of the argument outline will become the introduction and conclusion of your essay. In other words, the argument outline method of planning your essay will help you organize your thoughts so all parts of your essay serve the same purpose. So, planning the essay. If you watched the 13 tips video of this series, you might remember this basic form of a philosophy essay I provided under tip number 3. If you did not watch this, it is the basic form we will be using. Claim A is a philosophical thesis that you would have already assessed for truth and validity. You would have done the same thing for the argument that the second philosopher provides. Here you see, Anna's the first philosopher, Brad's the second. In this completed plan, we observe that it has 3 main parts, whether your conclusion is that Anna is right, or Brad is right, or Anna and Brad are both only partially right, or that neither are right. All of those variations will be based on your earlier evaluation of Anna and Brad's positions, whether you found their positions to contain true or false premises, valid or invalid arguments. We have been using and will mostly use 2 philosophers in our examples, but your assignments will not necessarily be on certain philosophers. They could just as easily be about philosophical positions such as consequentialism and deontology. Or your assignment might not include two, but a single philosophical position or single philosopher that you are asked to argue against, agree with, or take the middle ground. So first you will provide reasons for being critical of that position. By that I mean you will either show that one or more of the premises for claim A is false, or that the structure of the argument by which claim A is arrived at is invalid, or both. This, to repeat again, is a process that you would have completed in the previous step of preparing to write. Then you conclude by providing your reasons for agreeing, for disagreeing, which you already have, or for a middle ground. As you just saw, if there is a single philosophical position you are tasked to examine, and you disagree with it, your reasons for disagreeing in your conclusion are the same as your reasons for criticizing that position. In this case, you do not need any new reasons. This is one of the shortest kinds of critical essays you would write, and it consists only of a position and your criticism of it. A more sophisticated philosophy essay would need to give the first position an opportunity to defend itself before your final conclusion, whether that defense comes from your readings or from you. Let's return to our original example. This has at least one more step than the simple example. And if we take this template as the starting point of our argument outline and place the names of the philosophers with particular positions and the content of their arguments in the template, you'll get a bare bones outline, and it might look like this. In this example, philosopher A's thesis is that we have free will. Philosopher A provides three reasons, A1, A2, and A3 for this thesis. Philosopher B disagrees with philosopher A's thesis for the reasons B1 and B2. B1 and B2 could be many things, but let me give you a couple of typical examples. B1 might be philosopher B's claim that A2 is a false premise. B2 might be philosopher B's claim that the conclusion of free will does not follow from those premises. That is to say that the argument is invalid. Pay attention to Roman numeral 3. That is your thesis, your position, whether you agree or not with the first philosopher's thesis. This third part is not necessary in a purely exegetical essay. But in this example, you agree with philosopher A for the reasons I1, I2, and I3. Your reason I1 might be that philosopher B is wrong in claiming that A2 is a false premise. Your reason I2 could be that philosopher B is mistaken in thinking that A's argument is invalid because he is using the term free will in a different sense than philosopher A is. And since you are agreeing with philosopher A, I3 should be ideally some additional reason for thinking that A is right, and we have free will. But the above is only one example. Perhaps you instead agree with B. I've taken out example reasons here to prevent distraction from what I want to draw your attention to. To give another example, perhaps you think that the truth is somewhere between A's and B's position. Or you think that both are wrong and you have a third solution. To mind you again, there might not be a philosopher B or position B. You might have to play the role of B and find reasons to disagree, even if your conclusion will be that you agree. That should be much easier for you now if you've grasped the essentials of how to evaluate an argument. Does that sound complicated? It can get complicated. But by complicated, I only mean that there can be many stages of agreement and disagreement in an essay. Not many philosophy essays consist of the simple disagreement example I gave you earlier as the shortest form of a critical essay. If you don't feel ready for more details, please go to the next video, step 4 of section 3. That would be number 7 in the overall series. If you're ready for a bit more detail, then first decide whether you agree with A or not. The trick is to start with the opposite of what you think is correct. I will first show you what to do if you agree, and then what to do if you disagree. If you agree, then first state the opposite of your position. So if you agree, you must first anticipate reasons to disagree based on what you learned in the previous parts. Then state why you agree by showing why the reasons for disagreeing are not good enough. In other words, you give your reasons for disagreeing with the disagreement, thereby concluding with an agreement. Let's try the opposite. Imagine that you disagree with A. In the earlier, simpler example, I said that the essay could consist of you disagreeing with the position, and that would be all. But for a student essay that is more in line with philosophical analysis, what you would do is start with the opposite of the position you hold. In this case, since your position is that you disagree, the opposite of your position is to agree. You begin with that. Then, by showing why the reasons for agreeing are not good enough, you conclude with a disagreement. Some of you might have not liked this form. Do not despair. In the next section on writing the first draft, I will introduce a variation on this that you might be more familiar with. It will look like this, but we won't discuss it here because I think we talked enough about planning, and it will be nice to have an opportunity to revisit this most important part of writing a philosophy essay a bit later again. And I am hoping you will watch that video as well. But if you don't, I've given you enough to work with here. In this lesson, I have shown you a way to plan a philosophy essay, which is different from outlining an essay. That completes the third step of the 6 steps of writing a philosophy essay. Now we are ready to write. In the next lesson, when we start the process of writing, I will also show you what a philosophy essay outline will look like. So you'll know the difference between a philosophy essay outline and an argument outline.